Hey there! Welcome back to another episode or segment of My Thoughts or Thoughts On, where this time I'm going to be talking about Batman Returns and Batman Forever. Batman Returns is a sequel that I think nowadays has become a little bit underrated. And it's been kind of popular to bash the film because it's too much like a Burton movie. It's a bad Batman film, so on and so on. To each their own, that's all I gotta say. I definitely don't agree with any of that. Um, I personally feel Returns is just a little tiny step down from Batman '89. And it's a film that I have always liked. I liked it when I was a kid. I don't get the whole backlash that McDonald's had and all that, where it's all like, "Oh my God, this movie's too dark. How could you do this, Warner Brothers?" It's a sequel to Batman '89, which was really dark for the most part. It wasn't specifically made for kids and to sell Happy Meals. But if I remember correctly, they still sold Happy Meal toys for that movie. So I guess it didn't really matter. But in Batman Returns, I guess it was a big deal now. And McDonald's like threw a fit, and so did parents. And so, because of that, well, we never got Burton's third film in the trilogy. Thanks a lot, parents. But anyway, that's an actual movie. Batman Returns, my thoughts on it. I think it's a great film for the most part. I think it's excellent. There's only two really, two problems I really have with it. They only knock it down a half a star. I've reviewed this film before, so. But anyway, Keaton's great. He comes back as Bruce Wayne slash Batman and does a great job with both roles. Um, I've always preferred his Batman. I know some people say he's a serial killer. I don't see it that way. Well, he blows up that one guy. Yeah, he blows up Bull Harley. Yeah, Bull Harley, though, Batman tried to knock out himself, and all Bull Harley did was smile back at him. There's another guy next to him that had a ticking time bomb, so Batman decided, either I get blown up, or part of Gotham gets blown up, or this guy gets blown up. So I think I'm going to decide to blow up this guy instead of letting a part of Gotham get blown up or my ass get blown up. And I can't really seem to defeat this guy on my own, because I punched him a couple times and it doesn't even seem to like he even feels it. So, ticking time bomb right in your gut, smile, boom, punch your ass down the sewer, bam. Other's badass too. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, Batman's a badass, fine with me. I mean, I hear in Batman vs Superman, Batman's beating the shit out of people, breaking bones and killing them. I never had a problem with Batman killing people because he killed people in the first few comics. He shot people with a gun, broke people's necks. Not a problem. Never had a big deal with it. That's just me personally. But anyway, I think Keaton's a badass in this. He worked on his martial arts, and you could see the suit was adapted a little bit more so he could move a little bit more fluidly. Yeah, there was still some of the stuff where he couldn't move his head as much, but the suit was definitely better. Actually, the suit in Batman Returns is my favorite Batman suit. I just love the subtle little changes they made to the armor. I love that suit. It's my favorite suit to date on film in a Batman movie. I also thought Danny DeVito did a great job as the Penguin. Yeah, I think he really embodied and became that role. I think it's honestly a pretty underrated performance by him. And I also liked, of course, I loved Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. She was sexy, she was beautiful, she was dangerous. Yeah, the origin wasn't the same as a comic, didn't bother me. And she's my favorite Catwoman on film too. Uh, and she definitely does, does excite me in other ways. That's for sure. Um, and I thought her chemistry with Michael Keaton was great. Their relationship that they had was, I thought there were sparks all over the place. It was something that I think was kind of underrated about the movie. There were the romantic tension between the two was really really solid, and yeah, so they were great. Christopher Walken was great as usual as Max Schreck. Perfect casting choice as some unscrupulous businessman. Um, The action when it was there, I did like it a lot. The stuff with the Batmobile, where he turns around and burns the fire chick with the exhaust. I don't really know if that's the right word to say, but yeah, Batman's, exhaust fire engine stuff in the back of his Batmobile. Um, the scene where he's just beating the shit out of all the Penguin's thugs is awesome. Um, a little bit of the scuffles that he has with Catwoman, the whole sequence with the Batmobile being controlled by the Penguin, the whole stuff where he screws over Penguin and it hacks into his speech that he has. He's trying to run for mayor, and he says like, "I played this stinking city like a harp from hell." And then I've always kind of cracked up in the whole like little sort of 90s little thing he had, that's added to it where, you know, Alfred or Batman just moves kind of does a little remix version of played the stinking city. I played the stinking city like a harp from hell, harp from hell, harp from hell. Like, like he's some kind of DJ. Um, I also love the little subtle bits of humor in this. I love the sequence where, you know, Alfred is kind of giving, Bruce some lip, and Bruce is like, "Well, at least I didn't leave the didn't leave the Batcave open. I didn't let a Vicky Vale in the Batcave." So I thought it was like they actually did reference the previous film in the sequel, so that was cool. Um. There are certain shots in this I just adore. I love the look of Gotham, this Art Deco Gothic Gotham in the snow in winter. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous to look at. Arctic World, I love that set. Penguins, where he lives. Um, I also really love the iconic shot where, Batman, Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton stands up, behind the bat symbol, that behind the bat signal. And I know it's not necessarily, you know, I don't know, practical, but it's a comic book movie. I don't care if it's practical or not. It's an awesome shot. It's an iconic shot. Keaton standing up, with the music swells, and then you see the spotlight, and the bam, bat signal. It's awesome. Um, it's great, and that's one of the first things you see in the movie too, other than the little prequel stuff for Penguin when he was a baby with his dad Paul Rubens and his dad Pee Wee, who the film did a great job too with the screenplay where you felt for Penguin. It's like, yeah, he was kind of a freak, with flipper hands, but that's a horrible thing to do, to throw a baby into the sewer. I mean, that's just fucked up. So, you kind of do sympathize with him. But then when he loses his mind, doesn't get his mayor job, and then basically starts kidnapping all of Gotham's firstborn kids and wants to drop them in a watery grave, well, then, sympathy goes out the window because he's gone loco. Um, and I even like Danny DeVito's, sort of, his sense of humor was really prevalent in this, and I love this sort of dark sense of humor he has as Penguin. The whole scene where he kidnaps Max Shrek, and he's talking about all these things that he could do to him, and all these things that he found in the sewer that's related to Shrek, like this toxic waste, you know. And then I've always liked the scene where the air conditioning is messed up. He's bleeding this black stuff from his mouth, and he's dazed, and he grabs. Batman's vulnerable here, and Penguin grabs one of his umbrellas, and he like pops it open. And it's just like a harmless umbrella. It's just one, with all these like rubber duckies, and it's like for like kids, and he's like, "Oh shit, I picked the cute one." I always like that. And even like his little rubber ducky vehicle that he uses, to get around town, every now and then. Crashes the party, the ball with it. That whole sequence is really well shot and well done too. The whole ball sequence where Bruce meets with Selena Kyle, and you have the whole thing where they mention the mistletoe, they talk about the mistletoe. And the score. Danny Elfman at times actually does, in my opinion, like surpass his score from Batman '89. He adds to it, he adds new nuances to it, and still brings in some of the same elements and creates a very fantastic score that fits the film perfectly that I love listening to. I love listening to the score. It's a great score. Um, Tim Burton's direction is also really well done. Some very impressive visuals. Some really well. He does a great job setting up his shots. I miss this Tim Burton. This is the Tim Burton that you could tell still had passion. It still felt like he had something to prove. Like, yeah, I still got it. I still know how to direct. I still know. I still have this unique way of directing that no one else right now can say that they have. And it was definitely showed in this film. It was a dark, grim, gothic fairy tale. It's kind of a good way to put it in some ways. Um, yeah, I like Batman Returns. The only problems I have with it is the stupid sequences near the end with the penguins with rocket launchers on their backs. That shit straight out of Austin Powers. That's some kind of stuff you'd see like in an episode of the '60s Batman show. It just stuck out like a sore thumb. It didn't really fit in this universe or this Burton's Gotham City. It didn't really fit in this series of films. It just was too surreal and too absurd and too silly. And then there were some moments also where it got a little bit too absurd and too silly too. I mean, the whole stuff with the dog. Batman has this awesome scene with the Batarang. He remote controls it, knocks a bunch of people out, and a stupid little poodle grabs it. I don't like that scene either. But there's some scenes like that where it gets that way, where you're just like, okay, it's a bit too silly and absurd for my tastes. But it's not. There's not a lot of that. Still a film I really, really enjoy for the most part. It's still my second favorite Batman movie. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Batman Returns. I do not feel deserves a lot of the backlash it's gotten lately. I don't. But that's me personally. I don't. I think it's a great sequel. I think it's a great Batman movie. It's, in my opinion, the darkest Batman movie to date. The Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight. Dark Knight's a poser dark movie. It's dark and gritty, but it's. I mean, Batman Returns turns that stuff up to 11. Like, it's a lot darker than the Dark Knight, and especially with the stuff with Penguin wanting to kill the firstborn kids. So I can see why parents might have been upset by that, but this is Burton's Batman, and you had the Joker as a sadistic psychopath, and really it wasn't really something for kids anyway. So kids could watch it like I did when I was a kid, but it doesn't mean it's for them. And it doesn't mean that the film should pander to what you think the kids should be watching either. So maybe they shouldn't be watching this film, period. But anyway, I just those are my thoughts on Batman Returns. Now we get to Batman Forever, where originally it was going to be Batman 3. Tim Burton was involved. Keaton was wanting to do it. I think we are going to have maybe the Riddler played by Robin Williams, which I really would have liked to have seen, to be honest. But then the studio, didn't like the diminishing returns, the Batman Returns, in the box office. Even though it made a lot of money, it just wasn't as big as the first film, which honestly should have been expected. The first one was like a milestone event when it came out. But yeah, Warner Brothers wasn't happy with that, of course, with the McDonald's stuff and the advertisers, and everyone's like, we don't want to advertise another Tim Burton movie where kids are potentially, kids are kidnapped and might be killed, and a guy gets his nose bitten off by the penguin, and we really don't want to advertise that. And so Warner Brothers pretty much decided, okay, Burton's out, we're gonna go with Schumacher, and that's the moment where Keaton's like, I'm out too. And part of it was also Keaton was like, if I'm gonna do this, you better pay me more money, so I don't think I deserve it. And Warner Brothers like, no. And so Keaton was like, fine, fuck it, I'm out of here. And there's actually a pretty good interview with Michael Keaton around the time of Birdman's release where they're asking him about Batman Forever, and he's like, I read the, why didn't you do it? And he's like, well, I read the script, and It sucked. He's just like laughing. He's like, it sucked. I just I love how nonchalant Keaton is. He just like tells it like it is. Like, I didn't do Batman Forever because it sucked. I wouldn't say it was that bad of a movie, but I would say it's not a film that I like as nearly as much as I used to, and I wouldn't even honestly say I like it as a whole. Um, so yeah, Keaton was out. Then they brought in different actor to play Batman. Val Kilmer was in as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Uh, Chris O'Donnell was in as Robin. It was originally Robin was going to be played by Marlon Wayans, and in the Burton idea, and I think he was supposed to have like a cameo in Batman Returns, but that didn't work out. And so he was eventually cut out, but they still had to pay Marlon Wayans. So to this day, Marlon Wayans still gets royalties, and still gets a little bit of his payment, for getting basically cut out of Batman Forever. So Chris O'Donnell comes in as Robin. The only really returning cast members from Burton's films in this movie is Michael Gough as Alfred and Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon. There was even a different composer. Elliot Goldenthal was brought in to do the score instead of Danny Elfman. You had, I think Dr. Chase Meridian was supposed to be played by somebody else. I think it was Rene Russo when Keaton was involved. But then, Keaton was out, so they needed to cast somebody else that was to work better with Val Kilmer. So they cast Nicole Kidman. And instead of the Riddler, they decided to go with, well, they went with the Riddler, but instead of someone like Robin Williams, they went with Jim Carrey. It was really big at the time. And then they went with Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. And, of course, Joel Schumacher as the director. Schumacher's directing in this is not a problem. I don't think his directing is bad here. I don't really think that's the problem. I think the problem is Schumacher adding more neon and more bright lights into the world of Batman, which of course is then a precursor to what would happen with Batman and Robin. And I just don't like, I hate that concept. I hate the idea that you go from Batman and Batman Returns, which went through all this trouble, went through all this effort to bring Batman back into the shadows where he belongs, and then to just shove him into this neon light, and it just didn't bode well for me. And the tone is different, but there's times in Forever where it kind of feels like it kind of is like a Burton movie, but then it goes more into Schumacher, comic booky, let's not take this too seriously territory. And in Burton's films, it's not like they took everything deathly serious. They did have their fun, but there was enough of a seriousness to it that, kind of grounded things and made, there was a nice balance between the light and the dark in those movies, for me personally. Here, it was just a little bit too much light. And, but there are things about Batman Forever I like. For instance, I think the costume design for the most part is pretty good. Except for Robin's costume. I don't really care for Robin's costume. I don't really care for Robin, period. But, the Riddler had his moments. The whole One Piece spandex thing and the red hair. I don't really know if that was the best choice. Two-Face. I was okay with the makeup effects. I was okay with the costume design. I just didn't like Tommy Lee Jones' performance. But for the most part, the costume design is pretty good. The production design, I thought, for the most part, they did add some Art Deco stuff, but they added in sort of neon stuff, and yeah, it was different, but it wasn't really a difference I really liked. I mean, there was even a scene where Robin steals the Batmobile and shows up and fights some guys wearing, glow-in-the-dark base paint and shit. It was just, black light, under a black light. Like, that was just really, what? We don't really need to do that. This doesn't really feel right in Batman, either in a comic book or in a Batman movie. This looks like something I'd see in Tech War or something. If anyone remembers that show or those books, but yeah, or Nightman. But Or like, Black Scorpion. Again, there we go. Black Scorpion. But so uh Forever's disappointing as I've gotten older. As a kid I watched it a lot. As an adult, I'm just like, uh I don't like chicks dig the car. I don't like this car. Too much disco balls and neon for my tastes. Um I like the Batboat though. I like that. I thought that was pretty cool. And the Batwing was all right with a little bit of it that you saw. There's some good action. I like the stuff, where Two-Face and Riddler are going up against Batman and Robin when, they're in the Batboat or the Batwing. Don't mind that sequence. I love the opening sequence where Batman is kicking Two-Face, a bunch of Two-Face's thugs, and kicking their asses and taking names. I love that. I really do. To be honest, I think this film has the best fight choreography out of any of the Batman films I've seen to date. So, that's a positive. I don't mind Val Kilmer as Batman. I mean, he's got his moments. I like him better as Bruce Wayne rather than Batman, though. I mean, his Batman kind of feels like Val isn't really into it. He doesn't really believe in, consistently in the fact that he's Batman like Keaton did. I bought it with Keaton. Kilmer just seems like he's just Val Kilmer playing Batman. But there are times where he really does make it work, but there's other times where he's just kind of there. And it's weird. Like the stuff with Chase Meridian where he's like, I was just, that's just, come on, that image just, imagine just Batman just, and I don't like that. I don't like that stuff either. I don't like Nicole Kidman in this. I think her performance is one of the worst of her career. She's just like a slutty psychologist. Um, I don't like Robert Robert Downey Jr. as Two Face. No, Robert Downey Jr. is in this. I don't like Tommy Lee Jones as Two Face. I like Tommy Lee Jones. He's a great actor, but he's over the top and hamming it up and he's just being like the Riddler, the Joker. Why is he doing that? We already have that with Jim Carrey. We don't need two Jim Carreys in this movie. And, he's all just overacting. Oh, yeah, it's just too much. Why won't you just die? It's just like, tone it down. Two-Face isn't like that anyway. I thought Two-Face was more understated and nowhere near as over the top and silly. Take a page from Batman the Animated Series with Two-Face, or The Dark Knight, which actually did it better. It's just a shame that Aaron Eckhart didn't get more screen time and didn't live, so he could be in Dark Knight Rises. Talk about that more later. But yeah, not a fan of Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Never really have been. I don't mind Jim Carrey's Riddler. There are times where he can be a little bit too much. But I like Jim Carrey, and I think honestly his performance is pretty underrated when he's just Edward Nygma, where he's just this obsessed fan of Bruce Wayne. I mean, I guess a lot of people really do like that performance because it's been ripped off countless times. You have Guy Pearce in Iron Man 3, Killian, who's pretty much Edward Nygma from this movie. You have Jamie Foxx's character, Electro, from Amazing Spider-Man 2, who's pretty much just, a black Edward Nygma. And then you have Batman vs. Superman with Jesse Eisenberg. It's Edward Nygma again. It's like, stop ripping off Jim Carrey, for fuck's sake, from Batman Forever. I mean, really? Why is there so many rip-offs of this character? I don't get it. I don't understand. Don't get it. And with Jesse Eisenberg's character from the trailers and stuff I've seen, he's so jittery. He should have taken Jim Carrey's advice in this movie. Caffeine will kill you. But anyway, surf's up, Big Kahuna. I do enjoy his Riddler because it's just so. Jim Carrey's having so much fun with the role, and I can't help but enjoy myself. Even the whole scene where Batman smashes through the window, at the party, and he's like, he's talking, Two-Face makes his entrance, and Batman smashes through the skylight, and then Jim Carrey's all like, "Your entrance was good, but his was better." You know, there's fun to be had with Jim Carrey, but I think there should have been a straight man to his Riddler, to his crazy, manic, over the top, silly Riddler. But no, Two-Face is just copying Jim Carrey, and it doesn't really work. I think it would have been so much more effective if there was a straight man sort of thing. And there are elements of it where it kind of is like that, but then Tommy Lee just takes it too far, and then there's not a lot of moments like that in the movie, which is too bad. I also do not care for Chris O'Donnell as Robin. I don't like Robin, period. I could deal with Robin in like the animated series and like some of the comics, but I've never been a big fan of Robin. I gotta be honest. I like my Batman comics with just Batman in them. I like my Batman movies with just Batman. I don't need a sidekick. Although I can watch the 60s Batman show, but I've never been like, oh man, I love Robin and his, bat puns. Although I could get a kick out of some of them, but I still am not like I didn't want to see Chris O'Donnell say, "Holy rusted metal, Batman," and then Val Kilmer be like, "What? Like this metal, it's full of holes." That's just terrible, so bad. It's so fucking awful. Um, yeah, just not a fan of Chris O'Donnell's Robin. I didn't like his character. I didn't like his performance. I could have done without him. Period. It was just the whole scene where he saves Batman, out of the sand or whatever, and he's like grabbing his hand. He's like, this is like this, freaking smiling like, yeah. But that was an awesome shot though. Before Batman, Two-Face shot Batman in a bunch of sand. Where Batman, like the fire, he gets, you see Batman slowly, walk out of the fire. That was badass. Yeah, Kilmer had his moments as Batman. He was definitely the at the time the most physically accurate actor to play Batman. He had the physique, he had the height and everything, and I wouldn't have minded if Val Kilmer did another Batman movie, but he was insufferably hard to work with. So he decided to do the Saint instead of Batman and Robin, and I could say the Saint is better than Batman and Robin, but yeah. Other things I liked about Batman Forever, I like the score by Elliot Goldenthal. I actually do. I think it's honestly, I'd probably say it's my favorite score he's done, especially the triumphant, little bit like the triumph part of the score. Um, dun 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 dun. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what was an Elfman's score, but it kind of has its own sort of vibe to it. I like the score. You can sort of hear parts of Demolition Man in it though. But I still like the score, and Schumacher's direction I think is fine, and some of the action I don't mind, and I like the art direction, especially the stuff with Riddler's riddles. I really like how those are all set up, like the cards and like the pop-up books and stuff. I think it's kind of an underrated aspect of the movie is like how clever all those cards and all those riddles that the Riddler was sending to Batman were. Um, and parts of the soundtrack I do like, "Hold Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me" by U2, "Kiss from a Rose" by Seal. Although I don't really love that song as much as I used to. It's kind of been overplayed. And then you had this shitty, awful cover with Seal and that stupid Super Bowl commercial recently, like NFL Babies, where NFL Babies. I'm just like, oh my god, you just ruined the fucking song. And then you had, of course, Ed Helms singing it too many times in Vacation. That didn't help either. But it's still a good song. I still think it works better for The Crow than Batman, though. If you think about it, "Kissed by a rose on the grave." Um, and when it snows, my eyes become large, and the light that you shine can be seen. Baby, the more I get of you, the stranger it feels. Yeah. As long as your rose is in bloom, a light hits the gloom on the grave. Na 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 na. That's I do have to admit that's a good song. It's a fun song to sing too. Um, but yeah, there are things about Batman for I would say it's a step below average for me, just off the top of my head, because there's so many things about it I don't like. But that's the things I do. Michael Gough is great as Alfred as usual. Um, some of the production design I don't mind, and the art direction, and some of the costume design. I think Schumacher's direction is fine. Some of the action sequences I like. I have fun with Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Um, Val Kilmer has his moments. He's better as Bruce Wayne. I don't mind the sort of flashbacks they did with Bruce Wayne, with the whole stuff when he was a kid. Um, I don't care for I don't like Two-Face. I don't like Robin. I don't like Nicole Kidman's character, Dr. Chase Meridian, who's chasing Batman's ass. She wants to get in his pants. I don't really like that character, and of course I hate that fucking guy in the beginning who's this nerdy. Oh God, I can't talk about the bad things about this movie without not mentioning that guy with my hearing aid. Like, oh, that fucking guy. Batman! No! Fucking dweeb. That's fucking annoying. Like Eddie Deason. Who let Eddie Deason in this movie? But yeah, there's moments in it that are just cringy. They're just like, oh God, that's awful. But I wouldn't say it's as bad as Batman and Robin. I honestly would definitely say I like it more than A Dark Knight Rises, but that's just me personally. But at best it's a time waster. At worst, it's kind of painful to watch for me. But you know, it is what it is. I don't think it holds up as well as it used to. I really wish Burton got to do finish the trilogy. I wish he got to finish the trilogy and do the third Batman film that he wanted to do. And I honestly do feel it would have been better than Forever. Might not have made as much money as Forever, but I think it would have been a better movie. But anyway, I don't know what else to say except thank you for watching my thoughts on Batman Returns and Batman Forever. Stay tuned when I will talk about my thoughts on Batman and Robin. Fucking Batman and Robin. Buttman and Throbbing. And Batman Begins. But anyway, thank you for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.